Palworld, the creature shooter game, shocked us all when it dropped not too long ago, and gave us a look at what the world would be like if you hunted Pokemon with weapons. Kind of a weird concept, and when it dropped, it had a lot of us going, what? How is Nintendo not gonna sue over this? And we were waiting for the day for it to happen, and it seems that that day has finally come, because if you know anything about the legendarily litigious Nintendo, you gotta sue them all. So it appears that Nintendo is suing Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, and Pocket Pair has, in response, said that they are unaware of the patents that they are accused of infringing upon. I think if we look at the game and some of the creatures of the game, we can probably take an educated guess. Possibly some IP violations going on here, but I'm no lawyer, okay? I'm not somebody who knows copyright law inside or out or anything like that. And honestly, I don't even know how I feel personally about the situation. Like, are they worthy of being sued in this case? I mean, look, ultimately at the end of the day, Nintendo, they got a lot of shmoney, okay? And I think that there's probably room in the world for Palworld and Pokemon to exist. But let's maybe look at some of these Palworld characters and compare them to the Pokemon characters and see if there's anything going on here, right? Because if there's one thing that's for sure, we're on the internet right now. We're not lawyers. We're not fit to make a legal call here, but we are fit to judge. So let's judge this. So this one apparently is a pal called Sparkit, and obviously it kind of looks like a ripoff of Pikachu here. I mean, yeah, this is kind of the interesting thing about copyright and IP. Like, if we look at this creature, like, there's a couple things that are obviously from Pikachu, right? Like, a tail that looks like a bolt of electricity is kind of like Pikachu. That's gonna be a Pikachu thing going forward, now and forever, I feel like. But, you know, some of these other features, you know, the electric bolts on the side of the face and things like that, you know, they're different. It's different enough in a way to be, like, inspiration. But, I mean, I don't know, it's also close enough to maybe be a ripoff. But I don't think anybody's gonna confuse these two things, right? Like, if, like, Pikachu is Pikachu from Pokemon, you know that. That's, like, a mascot for one of the biggest IPs in the world. I don't think there's necessarily gonna be a ton of confusion. But, that being said, if I looked at one of these Palworld guys, like, I might think it's a Pokemon. I wouldn't think it's this exact Pokemon, but you know, it's really kind of a fine line. But let's look at some more of these guys. Okay, Fox Sparks. Yeah, like a fiery fox guy. Obviously looks like Vulpix, and they're saying evokes a little bit of Charmander here. Yeah, I get that. But again, I think this looks like different enough. Like, I feel like if I saw anybody draw this, it could look like an OC for like anything, you know. This doesn't necessarily need to be a Pokemon. So in this case, like, I don't think that if I just saw this character out in the wild, I'd be like, oh, that's a Pokemon ripoff. But I get within the context of the whole Palworld game where there's layers upon layers of borrowing ideas from Pokemon. Like, it's impossible to ignore the comparisons, the similarities, you know? So I think in that way, these designs kind of go from, oh, this is clearly just inspired by Pokemon, to like, yeah, they might be taking from specific creatures and stuff like that. I don't think this creature is exactly that, but let's look at some more, because I'm sure there's more blatant violations. But I mean, like, okay, a Firefox, right? Vulpix, like, that's pretty generic. Let's keep going. All right, like this too, it's like a penguin, you know? It's a little blue penguin. I don't think that that's a ripoff, right? Like, I think because they've played Pokemon and like a lot of stuff is ripping off from Pokemon, yes. But if somebody just drew that penguin right there, like, I could see that being in like Super Mario or something like that if it was designed down a little bit. But I don't think this is necessarily like, you know, it's a penguin, right? That's a pretty broad generic thing. So I don't think this one's so much of a ripoff. That one doesn't really bother me so much. And I mean, this one too, right? I mean, okay, Snorlax and Matsurina. That's a great name, actually. I think maybe Palworld might take the name game here if we go through some of these, and they're more like, we get some more Matsurina type puns. But I think this, like, okay, this is a cow that they're drawing inspiration from. Yeah, that's Snorlax's face, but it's just a cow. So I don't think that's close enough. But again, within the context of Palworld, it's like, I get it. I get why they're saying that. Okay, this is a little bit like different. Grintail. Yeah, and then the comparison is a Galarian Meowth. Look at all, I mean, the mouth is damning, yellow eyes. Yeah, one's bipedal and the other's quadruped, but I mean, you're not really sneaking that by. This is a pretty similar type thing. They're obviously both cats with very similar looks here. Dumut, I like the cut of this guy's jib, okay? He's giving me bottom of the mud catfish, and yeah, I mean, like, the face is similar to Slowpoke. It's similar, but I don't think that these are like rip-offs of each other. And I love Slowpoke, okay? I'm a part of the Slowpoke army, all right? And if you're in the Slowpoke army, let's get comments over there, okay? Slowpokes, let's go. Let me get my Slowpokes. But yeah, this is fine. This doesn't bother me. Oh, well, all right. This is pretty like, yeah, that crown on the top of the head for me is pretty like, okay, I see that. So this is the crown on King Pacha? King Pacha? I don't know. Looks like Emploion's trident beak. These creature names are getting me. These creature names are making me sound like an idiot right now. Okay, I mean, yeah, this guy has like a trident on his face, and this guy has a trident on his head. This is pretty blatant. And that's when, you know, I think it kind of, when they're like general animal looking things, I get this is supposed to be like an emperor penguin or whatever. When they're general animal looking things, I think it's easier to get away with like the IP violation or whatever if there is one. But when it starts getting into these more like very specific designs, I don't know, I get it. The trident. Okay, Zebra Strika from Pokemon versus the PAL Univolt here. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty, they're pretty similar designs. Again, it's a horse, so I don't think, you could probably get away with stuff like this. So I don't know how any of this stuff is gonna, you know, stand up in court, but I do think that since Nintendo waited so long, like they were charging up their super attack here. I think they're getting their ducks in a row. They must have some sort of thing that they know about, that a silly old boy like me doesn't know about. They must have something that they know about, or, you know, they must have some sort of angle that they know they're gonna try to pursue this on, so I have no idea. The Archer PAL called Robin Quill, okay, versus Decidui? Okay, some of these Pokemon names are like big brain. This is big brain stuff. Decidui? Is that like deciduous? What is that? Is that like a rainforest reference or something like that? A leaf reference? I feel like when I was a kid and the first gen Pokemon came out, like it was pretty easy to figure out where we're coming from. Charmander, Char, right? Char grilled hamburger. I know those things. Decidui, like these kids are on a big brain level right now that I'm definitely not on, so good for them. Robin Quill is definitely more like my speed. I can understand that, but again, you know, the Pokemon one is clearly more of a bird inspiration, and the PAL one is more of like this bipedal thing, whatever. But like the color schemes, I think are pretty damning. The abstraction of like a bird and an archer into whatever this bipedal thing is, like, yeah, that's pretty much drawn directly from this. But again, I don't know, is it inspiration? Is it stealing? I don't think, I think stealing's extreme. Honestly, how much damage could Palworld be doing to Pokemon as a brand? It has to be minimal, but, you know, Nintendo, they go after this stuff very, very hard. So, you know, I don't know. This is why I think it's interesting to look at this stuff. And actually, this is why I was fascinated by Palworld in the beginning anyway. I haven't even played Palworld, but since it dropped, I was watching it because first of all, the concept of just shooting a gun at a Pokemon is like horrifying to me. I think as like someone who grew up in the first gen, like I can't even think about just like firing bullets at a Pokemon, but like, I don't know, tell me if it's like, if you played it and you love it, let me know. I want to hear about it. I'm curious about it, but I don't think I'm gonna play it. But, you know, they're so litigious, but Nintendo is so litigious that it was shocking that they didn't do anything right off the bat. So I have been following this since it came out just because I was like, there's no way they're not gonna sue for a game that looks like Pokemon shooting each other. That's just like so not Nintendo. All right, next guy. Okay, next up we have Taco Taco from Palworld, and it's like a bird, and we have Xatu from Pokemon, and yeah, I don't, yeah, these are like, they sort of, So for this one again, I think it's just birds, right? I don't really, the bird ones, I don't know. Birds are birds. I don't know. I think the Pokemon design here is way more like designed and iconic than the Palworld one. That's just like a bird. So, you know, again, I could see any of these Palworld guys being mistaken for Pokemon out in the wild if you're not familiar with Palworld versus Pokemon or anything like that. So I do get it. I do get that in some regard. Tukatoka also has a similar beak to Toucanon. I mean, again, it's just birds. Like, yeah, Toucanon has a beak that looks like that, but that's because it looks like a toucan's beak. But I will say, Toucanon looks like he goes hard as hell. Jeez, dude, like, the bird Pokemon I was growing up with were like Pidgeys and stuff like that. This guy looks like he's hard, man. He's got that Toucanon on him. I'm not messing with it. Okay, Lucario versus Anubis. I mean, obviously there's inspiration from the Egyptian god Anubis, which is probably where Lucario's inspiration comes from. But again, like, these guys have definitely seen Pokemon. They definitely know what they're drawing from. So this is pretty close. I'm not gonna fancy around that. Yeah, Grisbolt, which first of all is a hilarious name. Grisbolt is definitely a Philly dude here, and Electabuzz. Yeah, these guys look very similar. I mean, you know, there's enough distinctions that they're different, but again, there's so much direct inspiration. Yeah, you got the lightning bolt on the belly. You got the yellow color scheme. All the color schemes are the same. I think that is really, like, more than anything, you know, super interesting. I get it. It's electricity. You're probably going to go yellow. But, you know, probably don't have to put a thunderbolt on the belly necessarily. There's probably other things you could do. Insect pal named Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth. That's funny. And Vespiquen from Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, queen bees. Again, animals, whatever. So we have Astagon from Palworld, and we have Mega Aggron from Pokemon. And this is where I think things really start getting, like, pretty close to each other, because we're not just talking about animals. Like, this is clearly a fictional beast that's been designed here by Pokemon. And yeah, there's a lot of similarities that end up between these two things. And let's keep going through. Yeah, Incineram versus Zoroark. Incineram versus Zoroark. Again, pretty similar. Let's power speed through some of these unless they're really, like, crazy. Garchomp versus Orzhirk. Yeah, again, a lot of abstract elements from the dragon being, like, taken here that are very specific to this Pokemon stuff. And, like, bipedal dragons are very Pokemon right off the bat. The Jet Dragon pal, brilliantly named Jetragon, very similar to Latios. And Latios here, yeah, I mean, drawing inspirations from Jets, Dragons, they're connected. I get it. These are close. I mean, there's some elements of Jetragon that look like it could be like a Final Fantasy character if they just, like, altered some stuff. So, you know, I don't think these are too close. All right, now this is pretty bad. Wooloo from Pokemon versus Lamball. This is like the same thing, right? I mean, this is pretty much like a one-to-one design. And this is where I could definitely see some sort of case being made for, like, if you're selling your Lamball plushies, like, and people think it's Wooloo or something, you know, you could be seeing some sort of benefit from that. You could be taking some sort of income away from Nintendo in a way. But at the same time, I also think Nintendo has tons of money. Like, I don't blame an indie company for, you know, using inspiration from designs that work to create something. You know, that's not really a huge problem for me. But, you know, I do get that there's rights involved. I just think it's so difficult to litigate this sort of stuff. So I'm interested to see what happens. But yeah, Wooloo and Lamball, yeah, they're looking pretty close. All right, yeah, Fangalope from Palworld versus Cobalion. And, like, yeah, these are very similar. You're using the same color palettes and everything, which I think is, like, really, make this guy a different color. Why you just make him a different color? Like, that will do so much to make this guy not look so much like this guy. But I get it. These are very similar looking designs. It's hard to say that there's not a direct, you know, use of a lot of elements, even down to the clouds on the hoofs that look like the lighter blue on the hooves of the Pokemon design. These are very, very, very similar. These might be the most similar that we've seen so far. Yeah, Brawn Cherry from Palworld versus Meganium. Yeah, these look very much the same. They're these little dinosaur guys. And, like, yeah, I feel like Pokemon grass dinosaur dudes have that, like, very iconic design that this is clearly ripping off of, right? Because even Brawn Cherry's got some things that look like a Bulbasaur, and right, the design is very iconic. So it's hard to say that this one isn't like a direct ripoff. Verdash versus Cinderace. Okay, yeah, these guys look the same, like fighting rabbit things. At least they changed the color on this guy, because I could say, all right, this guy's green, this guy's red. Look, there's a difference. But then, like, every other design element is pretty much exactly the same. Again, down to, like, the pants, with the cuff on the pants, and the belt-looking feature. You know, these are very, very specific design choices that become hard to say, oh, yeah, this is just what fighting pants look like, and so they both have this design. Like, no, you cuff the pants in pretty much the same way. You're obviously fans of Pokemon, so I get that. These ones are very similar. Azurobe, a blue snake-like pal, and Serperior from Pokemon. And yeah, these, again, very similar. Regal, snaky dragon things. And, you know, not even the palette swap could really help with this. They got the same pointed nose, eyes, pretty much everything. It's hard to really deny that there's a lot of similarities between that, which is why I do think it's funny when the Palworld developers go like, I don't know, I'm not really sure what infringements we did over here. I'm pretty sure you probably know which of your guys look like the other guys. So we have Boltmane versus Luxray. Boltmane sounds like an awesome rap name, but so does Luxray. So I don't know. I can't decide which one of these guys I like better, but I can say that they do look incredibly similar, especially like the general silhouette. And one of these isn't even available in the Palworld game, so, you know, it's just in the pre-game footage, but it does go to show you just how much inspiration, you know, or copying may have been done here. So look, ultimately, yeah, a lot of these designs, they share tons of similarities. I don't really know where I fall, like, in this case. I think ultimately, you know, I'm like, Pokemon's got tons of money. I think for Palworld to exist, it's different enough. The gameplay being very different, I think, is a huge help there as well, right? If this was a Pokemon clone and it played exactly like Pokemon, I think we'd have a little bit more of a case for this. But I mean, it's a lot of design elements that were clearly inspired by Pokemon placed into a gameplay that's totally different. But I do think it's interesting, and I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you think there's theft going on here? Do you think it's okay to be inspired by these designs? Because ultimately, there's some element of inspiration in any new piece of art that gets made. So where do you guys fall on that? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Check out some of my other stuff here. I just dropped a video on Sonic Adventure, doing a deep dive on that and how it reflected the extreme culture of the 90s. So if you're into that, check it out. It's going to be around here somewhere in a second. I'm Hellion.Vision. Thank you for hanging with me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!